Welcome everyone to tonight's Dharma talk, the first talk I've offered since our autumn session at Mountain Cloud. Just a few days before the session began, I received an email from longtime Sangha member John Brayman. John made the winning bid in our 40th anniversary auction on an item called Teisho Takeover. The right, the opportunity to choose a topic for a Teisho. John chose grace. Specifically, he asked that I speak to what Buddhism has to say about the Christian notion of grace. Buddhism is a wide landscape, sometimes called Buddhisms. So I'd like to narrow the question to ask how Zen might be seen to resonate with the Christian notion of grace. Still kind of a wide question. Is there a corollary in our practice and in the tradition that frames this practice? So the title of this talk, titles thanks to the invitation from Abby, the title is Amazing Grace. Seems like that's what this is right now. So first, a story. I started practicing Zen in 1994. A godsend, actually. And sometime the following year, one day I got up off my cushion and heard myself say out loud, "I think I'll go back to school." It seemed like a surprise, but in a way it made sense. My father was a theologian, and I had enjoyed studying religion in college. But more to the point, the experiences that had come on the cushion called to mind some of the language that I associated with Christian faith. Language of emptying, freedom from the self, grace. I enrolled in a Master's of Theological Studies program with the aim of exploring those connections. Then in school, along with my fellow students, I read a book by the 20th century Protestant theologian, Paul Tillich. My father actually studied with him at Union Theological Seminary, and I realized on the way here, I probably met him, but I would have been a baby. At any rate, one chapter in particular in this book struck a chord. It's called "You Are Accepted," from his classic book, The Shaking of the Foundations. And the topic is grace. Tillich approaches grace in that chapter by trying to reclaim the word sin. Hard word. To reclaim it not as some fall born of human corruption or as our human failings, but as a state of separation. Separation from each other, from ourselves, and from what he calls the ground of being. We experience separation and we suffer it. This resonated for me at the time with the first noble truth of Buddhism, often translated as the truth of suffering. The Pali word is dukkha, Sanskrit dukkha, dis-ease, unsatisfactoriness. And the image is of a wheel that's misaligned with its axle, so it just can't rotate freely. In other words, separation. The Buddha, in the sutras, teaches that our existence is transitory, dynamic, constantly changing. But we try to hold it still. We cling to life when there's really nothing to hold on to. And we do this maybe primarily through a construct. The construct of the separate self, that I, me, mind, that we set up at the center of our experience, then work to defend against all the insecurity. David Loy calls it our lack project. And no amount of effort can shore that up or bridge the divide. But it can happen in an unguarded moment that the scaffolding collapses. The separate self falls away, and the world falls open. Zen calls that awakening, realizing your true nature, coming home. When it happens, to whatever degree, the experience is nothing but grace. Just to say, it doesn't have to be awakening. This sitting is a solvent. There's a Dharma teacher, Judith Ragir, who said, Zazen opens us to a mysterious grace that transforms us at the base. As a Christian theologian, Tillich frames this differently. But there's something deeply recognizable in his language, the language of radical acceptance. So here's just one passage, and leading into it, the paragraph before, he's describing the suffering of separation. So Tillich writes, right at the nub of our suffering, he writes, sometimes at that moment, a wave of light breaks into our darkness, and it is as though a voice were saying, "You are accepted." He writes it again, "You are accepted." Accepted by that which is greater than you, and the name of which you do not know. Do not ask for the name now. Perhaps you'll find it later. Do not try to do anything now. Perhaps later you will do much. Do not seek for anything. Do not perform anything. Do not intend anything. Simply accept the fact that you are accepted. When that happens to us, he writes, we experience grace. Till it goes on to say, nothing changes, but everything is transformed. And nothing is called for in response, but acceptance. As he puts it, life belongs to life. To realize this absolute belonging is grace. Or Zen sometimes calls it isness, suchness, thusness. As is the tradition with these talks, I'd like to turn now to a koan. It's one that came up as I sat with grace and belonging and this never-ending practice that is at the same time always already complete. This is case 89 in the Shoyoroku, or Book of Equanimity. It's called Tozan's Place of No Grass. So, here's the case. I wonder how they feel being in company, Tillich and Tozan. The case. Tozan instructed the assembly and said, at the beginning of autumn and the end of summer, you, dear monks, are departing east and west. But you should go directly to the place of no grass over 10,000 miles. And again he said, how will you go to the place of no grass over 10,000 miles? Sekiso said, when you go out of the gate, there is grass. Taiyo said, I would say, even if you don't go out of the gate, grass is abundant everywhere. That's the case. This is this great master Tozan Gohon, or Dongshan Liangji, the Tang Dynasty master, co-founder of the Soto school that Dogen brought back from China to Japan in the 13th century. And here Tozan is addressing his monks at the end of the 3-month summer practice period. It's called Ango, 3 months of session, actually. They will be leaving, going out the gate of this intensive practice, probably going out for the first time in 3 months. Go directly to the place of no grass over 10,000 miles. And then Tozan asks, how? How will you go there? No grass, no concepts, not a speck of ground. Go to the world of boundless clarity, of infinite spaciousness, the world they've been resting in for the past 3 months. That place of no grass over 10,000 miles, infinite miles. Where is it? Where is that place? One point is clear. That place cannot be somewhere other than right here. No such thing. where's the boundary? Tozan in 9th century China. You in the cloud, we in the zendo. One here. Such belonging. And if these monks think leaving the world of not one thing and returning to the world of activity involves two worlds, that is delusion, of course, grass. Or if you think mu is awakening and the everyday world is grass, that's delusion. Or if you awaken to mu, come home to who you truly are, and then stick to it, this is perfect. I'm not going anywhere. Abundant grass. And to arrive at great enlightenment, grass. What is there to attain? Even to think I cannot go out of the gate, I can't. Yep, and that's grass. I've been speaking lately on a couple of occasions about Dogen's experience, this great awakening of body and mind fallen away, fallen away. Even that, however deep and rich the experience, however transformational, however life-giving, it's also delusion. Fallen away, fallen away. That's what this is. This boundless, sourceless world. And to say that, even to say it, is grass. How will you go to the place of no grass? Over 10,000 miles. So Sekiso, hearing about Tozan's instruction, adds his comment. When you go out of the gate, there is grass. This master Sekiso, during this period of Tozan and mid-9th century, the Tang Dynasty, the government was persecuting Buddhists. Tozan was so well known that nobody bothered him. But Sekiso hid as a layperson for 3 years among a group of potters just making pots. And then at the end of the persecution, one of the monks, this is the story, who had been at this summer ango, this 3-month period of practice with Tozan, went to visit Sekiso. And Sekiso asked, well, what is Tozan teaching? And the monk relayed this scene. And that's when Sekiso says, go out the gate. And immediately there's grass. Go out the gate. The monk went back to Tozan and told him this, and Tozan said, that is a saying of a teacher of 1,500 monks. And that did happen to come true when Sekiso went back to teaching. He went to a monastery with 1,500 monks. When you go out of the gate, there is grass. On one level, we can hear this as a kind of warning, a caution to go out the gate and seek a place of no grass, as if that's what it will take to keep practicing. That's misguided. But Sekiso is also encouraging us keep on practicing and clarify the world of day-to-day life. Take your practice into the world just as it is, weeds and all. Nothing lacking and nothing wasted. Then 100 years later, Teisho, who's a deep, well-known lay practitioner, he hears Tozan's famous teaching 100 years later, and he says, even if you don't go out of the gate, grass is abundant everywhere. What inside and outside? What if this is the gate? All of it. Your whole body in 10 directions. Near, far, up, down. By what measure could we limit it? This one world, including our concepts, our delusions, our struggles, including all the pain and the joy. What if another word for grass is grace? One of the early sutras tells of an exchange between Shakyamuni Buddha and Manjushri, Bodhisattva of great wisdom. The sutra says, one day Shakyamuni Buddha saw Manjushri standing outside the gate. The Buddha said, Manju, why don't you come inside the gate? Manjushri said, there is nothing outside the gate. Why do you ask me to come inside the gate? Outside, inside, grass, no grass. What are you talking about? From the beginning, no such thing as a gate. Such belonging. Just fall into it, right where we are. In another sutra, quite well known, Manjushri asked the pilgrim Sudana to bring one stalk of medicine, one stalk of a medicinal herb. So Sudana searches the entire earth and can't find anything that's not medicine. The whole great earth is medicine. Which stalk shall I bring you? Manju says, bring one stalk. Sudana bends down, plucks a blade of grass, and hands it to him. Dogen writes about this. Manjushri held up the single blade, showed it to the assembly, and said, this one blade of grass both can kill a person and give them life. See one blade of grass, or maybe the pinyon tree outside, as it truly is. And your separate self cannot survive. See a single stalk, and even our sense of separation is whole. Now, intimately manifesting this one fact, this one seamless fact, constantly changing and by nature inseparable. By nature, such belonging. Suddenly grass doesn't sound so bad. It's not just medicine. It's treasure. And it's grace. Not to be sought, yet everywhere you turn, your own true face. I'd like to close with a poem that maybe circles back to Tillich's rendering of grace. This is by the 20th century Spanish poet Juan Ramón Jiménez, translated by Robert Bly. It's called Oceans, Oceans. I have a feeling that my boat has struck down there in the depths against a great thing, and nothing happens. Nothing. Silence. Waves. Nothing happens, or everything has happened. And are we standing now quietly in a new life? A new life. The planetary extinction, the rise of authoritarianism, the ache in our own hearts, grass everywhere, calling us to a belonging beyond any condition, calling us to the surrender that is always already here, calling us to the grace of this moment, just as it is. Thank you.